Hi, I'm Alex Newman, a foreign correspondent with the New American Magazine, and today I want to talk to you guys about the abuse of Interpol, the self-styled global law enforcement agency, by the mass-murdering dictatorship enslaving communist China. So as regular readers of the New American already know, because we actually covered this story, we were one of the few media outlets to cover this story some months ago, an actual communist Chinese agent was recently selected to lead Interpol. He is the former Vice Minister for Public Security over in communist China, and his name is Meng Hongwei, and he was basically in charge of parts of communist China's repressive apparatus, right? As regular readers of the New American know, as people who don't rely on the establishment media know, the dictatorship in China is just absolutely ruthless, right? I mean, they chop out organs from political and religious dissidents to sell them on the black market and to give them to high-ranking members of the Communist Party. They strap women to tables against their will and murder their babies if they have exceeded the quota of children that the Communist Party in China allows, right? So it used to be the one-child policy, now it's the two-child policy. If you exceed that, they will strap you down on a table and abort your child against your will. So this is the kind of regime we're dealing with here. This is a regime that ruthlessly persecutes Christians. This is the regime that has murdered more human beings than any other in all of human history. So this is, this is all just to give you guys an idea of what kind of dictatorship we're dealing with here. This is a dictatorship that censors the internet. This is a dictatorship that destroys, murders, and executes its political opponents. And so who else would you want to put in charge of the global law enforcement agency, right, Interpol, than the former Vice Minister of Public Security for this brutal, savage dictatorship? And so that is what they've done. And already, actually we warned in our article some months ago that this is what was going to happen, and already it's happening. There is a Chinese real estate developer. His name is Guo Wengui, kind of a tycoon over there. He was pretty well connected with the Communist Party bigwigs, as most of the quote-unquote businessmen are. And in China, the quote-unquote business really has, it's hard to tell where the Communist Party begins and the business ends. But so this gentleman, he came to the United States. He was living in California. He's been living there for a while now. And he gave an interview with the Chinese language US-based media saying that he knew where the proverbial bodies were buried, so to speak, right? Not the actual bodies, but he said he was aware of very high-level corruption by some of China's most elite communist families. They were buying companies through front companies, and so all this shady corruption and stuff going on. And so he was blowing the whistle on this, and he said he actually threatened to reveal more, and obviously the communist Chinese dictatorship was very unhappy with this. So what they did was they sent out a red notice to Interpol. A red notice is the equivalent of an international arrest warrant, right? So once they send this to Interpol, Interpol puts out the red notice, and then this goes to basically every government on the face of the earth, from the most totalitarian, mass-murdering, genocidal psychopaths over to semi-civilized governments, all of which participate in Interpol. And what's supposed to happen then is any government who finds out where the person who's subject to this red notice is, that government is supposed to take action and arrest them, and then assuming everything is legitimate, send them back so they can be prosecuted by the authority that asked for the red notice to begin with, in this case Communist China. So Interpol did put out the red notice, right? Of course it's run by a Communist Chinese agent, and actually the vice leader of Interpol is now a Russian. All this hysteria about the Russians, who better to lead Interpol than a Russian, right? Now you have this red notice out there for this Guo businessman, and he is upset about it, and he has threatened to reveal even more corruption among the upper levels of the Communist Chinese Party. So, everybody knows the Communist Chinese Party is corrupt to the core, right? I mean, corruption doesn't even begin to describe it. This is a group of mass-murdering gangsters who happen to have succeeded in enslaving a country with the help of some very prominent Western globalists, as we've documented extensively in the New American Magazine. I encourage you to check out the articles below for more information on that. But what is important to mention here, what is new, is this abuse of Interpol by brutal mass-murdering dictatorships to hunt down their political enemies overseas. So this is a very, very dangerous trend, and this is not the first time that this has happened. Saudi Arabia has used Interpol to track down a woman who converted to Christianity, which is, of course, a capital offense in China. They also use it to track down journalists and others who criticize the regime and its fanaticism. So we also, this was in 2012, but if you go back even further in history, Interpol was actually completely taken over by the mass murdering National Socialist regime that enslaved Germany and mass murdered millions and millions of people. So this is a very, very dangerous tool. It probably should not exist in its current form, right? This is just it's just ripe for abuse. It's just begging for abuse. It's just begging for dictators and third world tyrants to use it to chase down their enemies overseas. And so it's time we have a real discussion about this. Do we need a quote-unquote international law enforcement agency? And if we do, which I think is certainly a subject that needs to be discussed by the American people if we're going to participate in this fraud, and if we do, what kind of safeguards are going to be in place to make sure that mass murdering dictatorships don't hunt down people, say, in the United States who have angered this mass murdering dictatorship? So Communist China is now trying to expand its influence overseas. Now its agents are running all kinds of international agencies. Obviously Interpol, a whole bunch of UN agencies, right, have Communist Chinese agents at the top of them. The ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, the World Health Organization has got a Communist Chinese agent running it. UNIDO, right, the UN Industrial Development Organization, has got a Communist Chinese agent. The Economic and Social Council has got a Communist Chinese agent. So all these powerful UN agencies are being run by Communist Chinese agents. The Communist Chinese dictatorship is actually training more at an institution they call their School for Global Governance. So all of this needs to be discussed. Our leaders in Washington, D.C. are not talking about these things, but this is a very, very real problem. It's a threat to the American people. It's a threat to our freedom, and it's a threat to the entire globe. So we need to speak out about this. We cannot allow this. We cannot subsidize this. And please check out the articles below. Stay on top of these developments. The New American is the only place you'll find this kind of information. So thanks again, and stay tuned.